Hi everyone, welcome to Bible Beans. This is a video blog where you can follow along to find Bible verses that you can read so that you can go through the Bible in 1 year. I would also be highlighting specific Bible verses or ideas that I think might be especially helpful or inspiring. So for today, the readings in the Old Testament are Genesis 3:1 to 4:26. In the New Testament is Matthew 2:13 to 3:6. For Psalms, we have chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, and for Proverbs, we have chapter 1, verses 7 through 9. So, from today's reading, I've chosen to look at one specific Bible verse, and it's the second part of one Bible verse. It's Genesis 4:26, and it reads, "At that time, men began to call on the name of the Lord." What I find very special and very interesting about this Bible verse is the placement. It is located at the end of chapter 4 of Genesis, and chapter 4 of Genesis records a lot of firsts for mankind. For example, in Genesis 4:6, we have the first mention of the concept of sin. In Genesis 4:8, we have the first crime of passion taking place. In Genesis 4:17, we have the first city that is built. Also, we have the first instances of group level task specialization. This is happening among Lamech's children and who are also Cain's grandchildren. Jubal's clan are the first musicians. It says that they're the first string and wind instrument musicians. Jabal's clan are the first livestock breeders. And then we have Tubal-Cain's clan, who are the first iron and bronze forgers. They make tools. We also see that we have a first recorded crime of self-defense taking place. In the midst of all these firsts, we have that Genesis 4:26 says that people began to call upon the name of the Lord. Now this word call upon, it comes from a verb in the Hebrew that is, I would try to pronounce it, it's kara or kara. So this verb encompasses three actions. It's to call, to summon, and to proclaim. According to my source, I'm gonna give credit here, this refers to the first regular act of worship. It was solemn, it was public, and people were beginning to address God formally in prayer and thanksgiving. To me, this makes sense, right? Because we have a group of people that are starting to specialize. They're starting to become a more organized society. We have cities being built. We have people starting to have some form of task specialization and some sort of like groupings that are taking place. And then we have the first form of organized religion that is documented. What I find very interesting, though, is that a lot of times when we talk about the narrative of how organized religion or organized worship is viewed, we think of it as an explanation or some sort of primitive form of explanation for nature or for any type of phenomena that people used to kind of understand their surroundings. But here in this context, we see that people are not necessarily doing that. We see that people are starting to organize, they're starting to form these type of groups, and they're starting to learn about their environment in a very specialized way. They're starting to interact with the animals and the biological sciences, so to say, very primitively through the livestock breeding task specialization. We also see some initial forms of art in the musical instruments and the groups that is specialized on that. And we also have people that are starting to work with minerals and metals and starting to forge tools. So we see here that it's not that people are using organized religion as some sort of crutch or some sort of like precursor to understanding nature. It's actually coming after they started to become more knowledgeable and more organized. And what I think is interesting here is to look at that progression. And I thought of this book, and I thought it was a good explanation of, to me, what is happening here. This is a book, Predictably Irrational. It's by Dan Ariely, one of the premier economists and economic behavior researchers in the world. He, in the first chapter, talks about how we use relativity to assign value to options that we have. So in the first chapters, he talks about an experiment where students were given 3 options for a subscription to The Economist magazine. The first was an online subscription, and it was only $59. The second was a print subscription, and it was $125. The third was an online and print subscription, which cost the same as just the print subscription, which was $125. Now, of course, the majority of students overwhelmingly chose the third option, to have the online and print subscription together. And the reason is why is because that they felt that they were getting for free an online subscription, which would normally cost $25, and they were paying for the print subscription. So the relative value of this option was higher when they compared it to, the other or the previous 2 options. I think for these people, these men here in Genesis 4, who are forming a society, who are becoming more and more knowledgeable about their environment, they're not necessarily irrational, or they're not necessarily acting in a way where they're not following a very logical pattern of behavior when they start becoming, or where they start looking for God, or becoming a more organized group of worshipers. They are doing what these students did. They are choosing the alternative that has the best relative value. It is understanding God and understanding His love for us and His presence in our lives, and also understanding the world and the environment around them, and seeing that those 2 things are not necessarily exclusive. They're compatible and they provide added value to each other. Furthermore, I also think that we as human beings right now, we're used to seeing religion or organized worship and a more scientific, organized pursuit of knowledge as being opposite and exclusive. I don't think they are. I don't think one precedes the other. I think they can be complementary, they can be helpful for us as society. And I hope that in this year you can join me and continue to grow as a person and as an individual in both directions, and choose the best option for you. So to close, I want to look at the last time the Bible verse, which says, "At that time, men began to call on the name of the Lord." I hope that in 2017 you can continue to become very intentional about your walk with God, and we're here to help. And every day we'll be sharing God's word, which is one of the primary ways to get to know Him. And yeah, thanks for watching.